The Hedonites of Slaanesh are a chaos faction that are known for tempting their opponents with the allure of power at the cost of losing themselves, or more accurately, the life of their units. In Warhammer Age of Sigmar 4th edition, this mechanic returns in the new battle traits for the faction. However, the reaction online, specifically on Reddit, has not been positive, with players saying that the mechanic is a lot weaker than it used to be. It's been too heavily nerfed from the 3rd edition. So what is this new mechanic and what did they mess up about it? And are the Hedonites of Slaanesh going to be any good in 4th edition of Age of Sigmar? Let's take a look together. One of the most exciting parts of playing Warhammer is representing your faction on the table during gameplay. So for that reason, it's really important to catch you up on the lore of this faction so you can see how it ties into the topic of this video. Let's start by defining hedonism. It is the pursuit of pleasure, and that is what the followers of Slaanesh do. They pursue pleasure in battle, in lust, in food, and in power. These tainted humans and demons seek the favor of their master, and they rally whenever mortal kind succumb to their base pleasures and reach out to the Dark Prince for his assistance. As was mentioned in my Daughters of Cain preview, Slaanesh was tricked and captured by the elf gods Tyrion, Teclis, and Malarion with the help of Morathi. Although Slaanesh is hidden away from his servants, they continue to do his bidding in the mortal realms, and many are still trying to find their lord. However, there are those that look to usurp his role as the god of temptation and excess, truly living up to Slaanesh's influence. Little do the forces of order know that Slaanesh has already begun to break his chains at multiple points in the timeline. He awaits the day that he can break free fully and unleash his influence upon all those who walk the realms. Okay, so now that you know temptation is a major theme for Slaanesh, so let's talk about this new battle trait, or I should say newly vamped battle trait, the temptation dice. What are they? How have they changed? Why are people unhappy? So we can take a look at the battle trait together and we see there's two sides to it. And we're going to start on the right with the passive euphoric killers. While a friendly unit has the euphoric keyword, that unit's weapons have crit 2 hits. That unit can also use the run ability and still shoot and charge later in the turn. So that's a super powerful effect. If you have euphoric, obviously that's going to be a really big deal. So how do you actually get this? Well, we need to take a look at the left side of this battle trait. Declare, pick up to 3 friendly Hedonites of Slaanesh to be the targets. They have the euphoric keyword for the rest of the battle round. Great, so you pick people and then they get buffed. Seems pretty good. In addition, for each friendly unit you pick, you give your opponent 1 temptation dice. They can use this temptation dice to replace a wound roll, a save roll, a ward roll, a run roll with a 6, or they can use 2 temptation dice to replace 2 of their dice in a charge roll to make it 2 6s. So that makes a charge roll of 12, which is a very, very hard charge roll to get usually, and a very impactful charge roll. It's very important tactically to be able to make such a massive charge across the battlefield. So each time your opponent uses one of these temptation dice, they're going to roll it. If it is a 1 or a 2, it's a 33% chance, then they are going to take D3 mortal damage on the unit for which that roll was replaced for, and they can maybe die from that or maybe lose some models. We don't know. All right, so why is this bad? Well, like I just said, the chance of them taking damage is only 33%, which means that you have to kind of say, well, does the euphoric keyword, outweigh the advantage that my opponent is getting? And when your opponent is getting a 12-inch charge, then no, it typically is not going to. So the advantage of replacing a number of 6s is big, specifically when it relates to charges, but even with some of these other things that it can replace, it's still going to be really good. Maybe a very important run roll. Maybe it's going to be a big save roll when you have a unit attacking that does a lot of damage and you don't have ward or something. So there are some counterpoints to the downsides here, namely that you don't have to give 2 dice to your opponent. You can only pick a single unit to get the euphoric keyword. And now I do have something to say about that later, but first, let's talk about the other arguments and pros of this ability. Oftentimes, a wound or save or ward roll isn't going to really equate to that much damage anyway, so being able to prevent it may not be a big deal. There's also a ton of Slaanesh models that want to be charged that were revealed in this article. We have the Shalaxi Hellbane that negates an enemy hero's charge and charges them instead. We also have the new Fiend that has a chance to give strike last to enemies that are in combat with it, so perhaps you offer it up to be a charged target. We have the Simbaresh Twin Souls, who want to get charged in order to activate their War Scroll abilities of a 5-up ward and 1 attack characteristic reduction for units that are attacking them. We even have spells that interact with the euphoric keyword, and the one that they showed us, the spell Sadistic Spite, which turns the crit 2 hits keyword into the crit mortal keyword for euphoric units. So this means that you can skip the wound and the save rolls and just deal a ton of damage. This gives you more potential advantage to using those temptation device than not, and it also might just make using just one temptation device worth it because you have that one model that's buffed. That one unit, sorry, I should say that's buffed. And now you have even more ways to buff them, and it's totally worth it even just to have the one that you have supported. So what's the truth here? Is this a bad battle trait or is it a good one? And I think that the truth is somewhere in the middle, but I think it's kind of skewing to be bad. And I have a few reasons why. I think that the percent chance to do mortal wounds is just too low. I really think a 50-50 would not have been such a big deal, but we have to think about that while this seems weak, the whole set is supposed to be weaker. This whole rules change is making all the factions weaker, so maybe this is just in line with what their playtesting has found out. And we do know that the euphoric keyword is very powerful. It's going to require a strong player to make the absolute most out of it, so tactically you don't face the repercussions of the advantage that you're giving your opponent. We're also still waiting to see the rest of Slaanesh's forces to see if there's more synergy with the euphoric keyword to make it even more worth giving this buff and taking whatever advantage you can get out of it, so that your opponent, sure, they have their dice, but it's not that big of a deal. But at the end of the day, anytime you have a battle trait and you don't get to use it, it just feels bad. This is a defining part of your army, and there's scenarios where you might not use it at all, and that's just not very fun. What's really interesting is that they kept in the Spearhead version the old rules for the temptation dice. These are the 3rd edition temptation dice rules, and they're actually really cool. So how this works is you get to choose when you offer your opponent the temptation dice, and if they don't take it, they take D3 mortals on the spot. If they do take it, you get to roll that dice and you get some depravity points. And the more depravity points you stack up, the more passive buffs your models are going to get. So it has this cool thing where like you get to be the devil and you get to offer your opponent the dice and say, hey, that didn't go so well. Would you like a dice? And they immediately take damage if they don't take it. And if they do, then you get to power up your entire army. Sounds pretty cool to me. So that's kind of it for this video. At the end of the day, I think there's some really cool stuff that the Hedonites of Slaanesh have got. There's some stuff that we didn't talk about, some really cool faction terrain, some ways to make people fight twice, and some just other things that you can do to buff up yourself and debuff your enemies. So there's definitely a lot of potential here. And we absolutely have to see the whole book and the whole range and whatever else there is to come for this edition. But when it comes to the defining part of an army, their battle trait, it definitely doesn't look good at this point. So with that said, I'm going to get out of here and I'll be back soon with more Warhammer videos, but I want to know what you think about this. If you thought this was really a fair, balance of the trait, or if they could have done more.